All right, guys, welcome back to Let the Journey Begin. I am your host, Jason Waller, alongside my co-host for today, Alex Mesci. How you doing, buddy?
Good. It's nice to have a little back and forth. Last week I was with Hilary. This week I'm with you.
I know we're all over the place, man. Hilary's got some, she's having some technical difficulties out in Texas. Her power's out. So, but hey, I'm glad you're here. But I want to jump into something, man, before we bring on our guests and everything. I want to talk to you. We have a couple things to talk about, but you brought to my attention, just a few days ago about this whole new thing about California sober, which I kind of remember hearing about it a while ago. And but what you told me was profound. Why don't you let our listeners know what you came across this last week?
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, an article came out mentioning the term California sober, and a very prominent pop artist deemed that she is California sober, and this is a lady that, mind you, was basically found for dead in her house, overdosed, left by her drug dealer. So the definition of California sober is that you are not on any hard substances. Whoever wants to make the determination of what's hard and what's not, that's up to them. But you moderately consume alcohol and marijuana.
That is so alarming to hear. I mean, if did they not look up the word sobriety, or do they not know any of the means behind that?
I mean, based on what's in the public today, I don't think the dictionary is in effect at all. Everyone's changing definitions of everything.
Yeah, no, it's sad because it gives this false perception on what real recovery looks like and true abstinence is. Because I mean, the way I look at sobriety and the way I look at recovery is it's completely you're completely absence of anything that's mind or mood altering. And
absolutely, and I think it totally diminishes the term and or the programs around sobriety.
Yeah, and when you get those people that really, that should not be having anything in the back of their mind, like, wow, this could be, especially if it's a prominent person saying something that could influence them to go the other way, and it leads down a whole different rabbit hole of those types of things. It's just, why don't you just say you're not sober? You know what I mean? It's just like you just don't do drugs, and that you try to moderately use, marijuana or alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, why even make a statement at all? Because I think they're going to be creating the wrong message, especially to a very impressionable demographic that are, Gen Z and the kids in their teens and in high school and stuff.
That's just, I think that's the most frustrating thing around it, though, is, we're dealing with the number one, and you've heard me say this on previous shows, guys, or, the number one cause of death for 50-year-old individuals and younger is related to substance abuse. And it's just like, it's mind-boggling to me, because everybody thinks that we've been in this epidemic, with substances, which, yeah, it is, but it's truly been like a massacre. We're looking at that, and then you have COVID, and you throw all those other things in the midst of it. The amount of overdoses, how they've gone up, suicides, how they've gone up, the mental health. It's just really alarming. So I don't know. Again, we can go into this forever, but for us, sitting here, we definitely believe sobriety is abstinent based. We don't believe in California sober. We don't advise that you try it. We don't advise that you do it. But anyways, on a totally different note and exciting news for the foundation, we got a golf tournament that we're going to be a part of coming up here soon, right?
Yeah, we've got invited to be the benefactor of the Epic Golf Classic on May 28th at Harris Creek down here in Orange County, specifically Rancho Santa Margarita. And it's going to be a cool event. We're going to have some Red Bull athletes coming out doing some skydiving demos. They're going to be flying a flag over the course. We're going to do a helicopter ball drop, where normally it's, you buy a couple golf balls or donate money, and then they write a number or your name on a golf ball, drop it out of a helicopter. But they're going to be doing it differently in that these golf balls are going to be followed by skydivers.
That's next level right there, man. We're going to get you guys more information, but we wanted to share that. Something's going to be exciting. It'll be good. And if you guys are local, maybe some of you guys can come join us and play, get a foursome together and get out on the course. So enough from us too. We have a very special guest that's actually out of the country that we have. I think it's our first guest that's from out of the country, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are very pleased to bring on Carm onto the podcast today. She is a child and youth care practitioner, educational support specialist, and the founder of Girls Gotta Heal. Welcome, Carm. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be your first out of the country guest. That's pretty special.
We love it. Yeah, this is going to be an episode for the books for sure. How's your day going? How's everything going with you?
My day has been going pretty good. Literally just before I came on, I found out that our schools are being closed down again. So we've just been going back and forth from being in person to remote learning, and we are now back to being closed. So constantly adapting.
Oh my gosh. Question for you. How are you seeing that impact, the kids over there?
Oh my God. It's huge. And I see it firsthand because I work in a school setting, and I work with children who are right on now on my caseload. I have my youngest is 7 and my oldest is 16. And I'm seeing it firsthand. And I know a lot in Toronto. I can't speak on other places, and I'm sure it might be similar, but right now, eating disorders and suicide attempts are on the rise right now. We're seeing that a lot in our hospitals. So it's very concerning, and it's directly affecting our young people.
So sad. It is so sad.
Yeah, and we definitely, I think, can relate down here in the States versus Canada in regards to the suicide rates and the eating disorders. And, with the kids learning remotely from home, it's opened up a whole myriad of current problems. But based on that, what future issues do you see us running into based on what's been going on during COVID?
I just really see like mental health continuously being impacted in young people. And I don't know what that's really going to look like. But just being within this first year, we're starting to see that increase and manifest in different ways. And I think over the next 5 and 10 years, it's going to present itself in, maybe even a more severe type of way. So it's really hard to predict. But right now, it doesn't really look that great. So right now, as frontline workers, as support workers, the best thing that we can do is just be supportive and be there for young people and allow them the safe space to talk about the things that they're feeling.
100%. No, it's crazy to see how fast it's evolving. It's really it's manifesting, and it's really, 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 really sad, really scary. But that's why we're here, and we're trying to bring education and awareness to this. And but I want to switch gears. I would love hearing about that. And I want to talk about that, but I want to talk about you and learn more about you. So I'm going to hit you with a pretty tough question here. Okay. What is it that you wanted to be when you grew up?
Oh boy. I feel like, and I'm not sure if you've gotten this response before, but I was such an odd kid that I never wanted to be like that stereotypical like mermaid or princess. Like I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be a businesswoman, and whatever my little mind made sense of it. Some of my earliest memories are of me and my longtime best friend, her coming over for a play date, and we would take a stack of printer paper and my dad's pens and just like scribble on the paper, pretending we were writing cursive, and have this narrative about like some business that was going on. It was so weird. I definitely was not that typical child. I wanted to like skip over that and be an adult.
Is there a reason for that?
I don't really know. Like when I was younger, I definitely felt like when I was in school, I was not very stimulated by conversations. Even with my peers, I had to just like kind of fake it. And like, I was always trying to be that person who was like, the mature one. And my friends oftentimes didn't get me when we were kids naturally. But yeah. And the mom part, I just really very much looked up to my mom. She was a stay-at-home mom, and I saw her be nurturing, and I found that within myself very, very early on. I was a very self-aware kid.
So I got a question for you, because I feel like I can partially relate to your sentiment here. I feel like as a kid, I wanted to try ever so hard to grow up and be older. And now that I'm older, I feel as if, not that I lost out on my childhood or anything, but I want to go back to being a kid because times were simpler. I didn't have all these bills and relationship stuff to deal with. All I had to deal with was school, homework, baseball, and life was simple. Do you feel as if now, sometimes you feel like you want to be a kid, or you still want to be that mom and that professional, and that's just been the goal ever since, and you're going straight for it?
I feel like, no, I really just grew into my skin, and like, I'm kind of happy where I'm at. I didn't really enjoy like elementary school and high school was when I was hit with my trauma. So it was kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy where that ended up happening. I ended up having to grow up really fast. So looking back on it, I don't wish I could redo it because it really brought me to where I'm at now. So I'm very much at peace with that.
Well, and it sounds like you fulfilled a lot of those things that you wanted to do when you were younger, but you did just bring up a big, pink elephant in the room, if you will, which is, talking about the traumatic incident, so do you mind sharing with us, what transpired during those high school years? And I mean, maybe even talk a little bit about how it evolved from you kind of being that mature person and to what, kind of tee us up for what transpired in those later days in high school.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, my trauma really hit me when I was around 15. That's about the 10th grade. My family is very simple. We're a family of 5, but we've always lived with my grandparents in a big house. My parents were just, had a hard time with money and things like that. And we lived a very simple life. And when I was 15, my dad had gotten sick. They thought he had shingles. So they gave him a certain medication, and I don't know if it wasn't the right one or it triggered something else, but he ended up having a massive heart attack. And then he was in the hospital. Then he came back home, and I was having panic attacks like crazy. My body was in shock. And then we ended up calling the ambulance again for him. He had another heart attack. One thing led to another. He went into septic shock, and then he was in a vegetative state for almost 4 years in the hospital. So during that time, I was going through high school, trying to finish up high school, and then trying to go to post-secondary, trying to get into universities and colleges. And it was really tough. And I think that the thing that helped me get through the most was that my mom was she's amazing. She was with my dad every single day for those 4 years. She really modeled what loyalty and patience was, and faith. And she told us, I want you guys to continue going to school. Like, my job is to be here. Your job is to be a student. And my teachers would tell me the same thing when I was experiencing panic attacks at school or saying I couldn't finish things. They're like, Carm, you're a student. Your job is to be here. Would you rather be in the hospital? In part, sometimes I wanted to say yes. I wanted to be with my dad, but
right.
They're like, you can only control so much. So I just really persevered and continued. And, my mom wasn't working. So we all had to really step up, and I picked up jobs here and there and helped out. So that's kind of what had happened in those years.
Do you feel as if your perseverance was more so inspired by the support system around you, or was it more of an innate thing that the support system made it easier, but it all stemmed from within?
Yeah, I would agree with that. The support system definitely helped. There was definitely points where, my mom wasn't around, and it was just us really kind of fending for ourselves and trying to get through. So that, that inner part in me, that self-awareness, that perseverance really had to come through. And I know a lot of people in that position, when they're faced with trauma or changes in their lives, they turn to different things and try to find other ways to cope and get through. But for me, my mindset was like, I have to take care of my family. Like, I want my dad back home. I want all these things back. I want a sense of normalcy. And what can I do in the meantime to help my family? And when I was in university, my first year, my dad actually did pass away, and my grandmother passed away on the same morning. It was such a strange thing.
No.
Yeah. She passed away in the morning. He passed away in the evening. And my grandfather passed away 2 weeks before that. It was just a month of extreme loss. And I had lived with my grandparents too. And then shortly after that, we had to sell their house and we had to downsize. So I lost my childhood home as well. So a lot of things that were meant to feel safe for me didn't feel safe anymore.
Oh, and I'm so sorry to hear that. That is like so devastating. Where do you fall in the, because you have 2 other siblings?
Yes.
How old? Where do you fall into play on that? Are you the youngest or the oldest, the middle?
I'm the middle.
Got it.
Yeah.
And so all of you guys, as a united front, though, you guys all took on this as a team is what I'm taking away from. That's what I'm hearing you say, as you guys really grouped together. And with all that stuff, I mean, that is so much to process. And I mean, I'm so sorry for all the losses. And that's something personally, not in that short of amount of time span, but in 2 years, we lost 6 family members. And so this is something that is very near and dear to my heart. I mean, my wife lost her dad to a massive heart attack. and they're followed with grandparents, and there was this domino effect. How did you, like, going back now, what were some of the first steps that you took to process this? I mean, because when you're going through it, that's one thing, right? But like, what are some of those, looking back, like, I mean, how have you been able to really cope with these things? And what are some of the tools that you utilized and that you went through? Because I'm sure a lot of our listeners have experienced extreme loss, and are looking for, ways to be able to start the process of healing, and they just feel lost. They really feel like they don't have a way out.
For sure. I definitely, I wish I could say that it started pretty instantly afterward, but it took me a really long time to get to a point where I was really doing healing work and processing. I couldn't process it. And I realized after, once I did get help and go to therapy, they said I had PTSD. I was in the shower, I was driving, and I was like experiencing intense, vivid flashbacks of seeing my dad on, like, being covered, or, that moment of like feeling his heartbeat and then not feeling it anymore. So it was really impacting my functioning and just getting through. But I had that perseverance. I had seen my mom model it for me. And while it was a great thing, at the same time, it wasn't. And I think there's a cultural component as well. In our house, my background's Italian. We don't really talk about mental health very often. For the first few years after my dad had passed, it was very silent. We didn't even mention his name or anything. And that was just, I saw that modeled for me. I didn't really know otherwise. There weren't really many resources or much that was accessible to me. And it really took me going out there and trying to find ways to help myself. So when I had gone to university, I was in one of my lectures, and this counselor lady, she came through and she's like, just want to let you guys know, at the Student Service Center, we offer counseling. It's free. And I'm like, okay, you got me there. I don't have a lot of money, but you said there's free services. So right. It took me weeks to bring myself to go. And I actually did. I didn't really say much to her for the first few months, but I knew I was doing something right for myself. And I had to shake things up because it was just this generational cycle of not talking about mental health. So I'm like, something has to be done, and I can't keep going like this. I want to create opportunity for myself. I want to give back to my family. And if I stay stuck and not process what's going on, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change.
Why is it that, and I appreciate that, but why is it that you said, there was a 2-year period where you guys didn't talk about it? I mean, I know I'm taking that there's, a little bit of cultural background behind just kind of, pushing it and, shoving it down. Is that the main focus behind it?
Yeah. Like, I think it hurt so much. And we were within those years that my dad was in the hospital, it was just survival mode, like constantly going to see him, answering emergency calls that things had gone wrong. And we were just in survival mode for so long, and it had just all stopped. So I think we just really needed that time to process it. And it was really painful to talk about. We all had experienced that same kind of pain. My mom more so, because she had lost parents and, her husband, and then her brother the year after. It was so much for her. Oh. So, and I just didn't really have people around me to model what healthy coping had looked like.
Right.
So when and how did the, to use a metaphor, when was the egg cracked? Was that in the counseling and the student services, or, one day at home, did somebody just bring it up and next thing you know, the floodgate was open? How did the discussion about it come up?
I think going to take that first step in going to get counseling was pretty huge. But I had noticed in those first few years that I was becoming an emotional caregiver for my mom, which I love. We love our parents. We'll do anything for them. But I was carrying so much. And I'm like, I'm in university. I deserve to enjoy this experience the best that I can. I'm doing something for myself. So I just had it was just nights of not sleeping and feeling anxious. And I'm just like, I need to start doing something for myself. It's not going to change. I'm stuck.
Got it. So after you guys went through the grieving process and you did that, what has that journey been like though for you? So when you actually made that initial, we call that your moment of clarity, right? Where you walked in and there was some real transformation that transpired. What was that process that helped you get to where you're at today?
It was extremely helpful. It helped me work toward acceptance, which is something that it's really difficult, especially for a young person who's grieving or going through a very impactful life event, to accept what has happened. Because accepting it means that you're surrendering and you are open to feeling everything. You have to put yourself in that position to do the work. And I think it's so intimidating for people to do that. And rightfully so. I understand that. So, yeah, it was just more so taking chances on myself and being open to receiving support and trying different things. I was kind of like a blank slate. I had to try all of these things. And I knew going into that, some things weren't going to work. I would have to maybe switch counselors or, try different things or alter my support system and do different things to help myself. But again, I hadn't seen that really modeled for me. So it was a risk I was taking, but I thought that the benefits outweighed the risk.
What was the first either tool, tip, or technique that someone shared with you that made the light bulb go off for you, where you're like, this is the direction I need to go in. This is working. This is, perfect for me. And then how did that make you feel after that initial epiphany, so to speak?
Yeah. So actually a couple years ago, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, but I had been seeing this therapist and she had tried this technique called EMDR. So it's eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So they set you up very nicely in making sure that you feel safe and comfortable and you have people and places in your mind to go to if things become too scary when they come up. And essentially it's just bringing up those traumatic feelings and those moments for you and reprocessing it in a way that's very healthy. And that was very life-changing for me, because that was something, even though I had been taking steps to do the work, I really needed that to reprocess it and help me through those triggers that I was getting and weren't stopping.
Gotcha. Yeah, we've definitely been familiar with EMDR over the last few years, and there have been a lot of, when I say recent developments within the last probably 5 years or so, with the light bars and the haptic feedback and things like that we've seen a lot of great progress out of some of the individuals that Jason and I have come into contact with. EMDR
is phenomenal. It is so phenomenal. Wow. I mean, like, just taking a moment to take all that in and everything that you've experienced. And I mean, the journey that you're on. So, I mean, were you able to, during that process, while you're working on yourself and going through those, those motions and identifying, like, you're becoming a caregiver for your mom, you're trying to manage going to university. I mean, were you actually able to get to a place where you're able to go through university and be able to enjoy some of that time while you were there? And where did this end up taking you? I'd love to hear, about where you're at right now.
Yeah. So, I really had to push myself to get through those experiences. And, I did carry a lot of guilt with me in doing it, like going out to different parties or getting to know different people. I really had to push myself and push past the guilt, because it was very, such an incredible feeling, to carry, but I knew I was doing good for myself by exposing myself to different people. And like I had said, growing up, when I was a kid, I would often just pretend that I was, interested in conversation or carry it along. And I was actually now able to meet people who were like-minded, and who understood me. So I enjoyed that. And again, those benefits outweighed the risk. So I was taking more chances on myself. And once I had finished university, I took some time off to work. And again, throughout the university process, we didn't have a lot of money. So I was applying for every single grant, bursary, anything to get me money. And half of my tuition ended up getting paid from that, because I was really hustling. And so once I had finished university, I had taken more time off to work, paid off my loans, and then went back to school again. So I had studied psychology and then went back to school to study child and youth care, and just really get more specific. That was the age group I wanted to work with. So with that, I had gotten job offers in different settings. So I have worked in residential care, which is group homes. I worked in treatment centers. I worked in now the school setting. So it has really been a big umbrella for me to explore these different areas where I can support children and youth. And it's so important to me because I find that, listening to my story, I'm sure you can tell that the area that was most impacted of my life was my teen years. And I didn't always have the support that I needed. So it was important for me to give back and be that for somebody else.
Carm, so you bring up, you say you work with kids, and that's something that, I am a father, I have a young daughter that's 3, got another one on the way. I'd love to hear more about what it is that you do within the schools and with, the work with children that you do.
For sure. So I am essentially a support specialist where kids come in with individual differences, I call them, and they come with various diagnoses and disorders. And my job really is to create a plan for them. It's called an individual education plan, so that they can really reach their full potential and be successful in this setting. So it's a lot of collaboration with their team, including their teachers, and really implementing goals to ensure that they're successful. So it's goals that range from academic goals, time management, organization, self-regulation. And yeah, I'm really fortunate enough to work with these amazing kids. And I think oftentimes kids with individual differences get overlooked in schools or overshadowed and just get passed along. But I always think that there's potential in kids. And I always say that relationships are the foundation to everything. So my first thing that I always try to establish is a really good relationship in the first few weeks of working with a student, and then just kind of go from there in implementing goals and ensuring that they're successful in their day.
That's so incredible. How does it now? Do you work with like everybody within the classroom, or is a student brought to you? How does that work?
Yeah, so I have specific students that are on my caseload, but I always make sure that I go into the classroom because I think it's really important to show other students, how to be patient and how to be compassionate toward others who are different. So I model that for them as well. Yeah, so I'm in the classroom as well too. So I make sure I have one-on-one sessions and in the group too.
Sounds to me almost like you're doing the actual guidance counselor job, whereas they're just trying to place people into college and, do nothing to help you. Or at least I didn't get any help from my counselors. Saw them maybe 3 times in 4 years. But to me, it sounds like you are the guidance counselor, setting up these goals, setting up these programs, these individualized programs at that. I feel as if every kid should have that. Especially
in this day and age.
Yeah, especially 100%. With what's been going on with COVID and stuff. Like, I guarantee you a lot of trajectories have been completely run amok in where they're supposed to be going.
For sure.
100%.
There's been so much regression in, some of our top students. And I do agree. I think that not 10 kids can fit in the same box. Everyone has differences. And I think it's always important to be mindful of that and really cater your teaching and your guidance toward that.
Biggest thing I think though is the individualized plan. That's huge. That's one of the most important facets. So good for you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
It's crazy though. Being able to look at, how all great change proceeds through chaos, right? You look at this traumatic event that happened to you and now how you're being utilized for service in that area, under the very unfortunate circumstances, but you're able to really help a lot of people in that space now. Go ahead.
Yeah. On that, helping people in that space, you created something on the internet that I think is a fantastic starting resource for people that are enduring trauma. And it's called Girls Gotta Heal. So at what point did that come into the mix? And what gave you the idea behind that?
I think I had always known that I wanted to create a community like that. It was exactly what I needed when I was younger. And I could never find something that really fit for me. I had counselors being like, you should go to this group or you should do this. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm already everything just feels so unsafe to me. I don't want to try different things. I don't trust people. I don't want to be vulnerable. So I really wanted to create this community. And I had found that I just wasn't in the right headspace, in the right place in my life to start it until recently. And I've been doing so much healing work on myself. And I know I will always continue to have to do that. But I just felt like now was a good time to really create that. And I could really tailor it to what someone like me might have needed, as well as bring in my professional work. And, in my professional work, I look a lot at individual differences. So with that framework as well, and just kind of create this community and these peer support groups as well, to foster a sense of connection and bring people together and kickstart their healing.
I love that. So, I mean, that sounds like, because one of the things I love talking about is solution, right? And being where you are today. But you did bring up a valid point of this is something that you're going to be dealing with for the rest of your life. So what do you do to maintain and stay in solution, because those memories do come back. So how do you push forward with that? I mean, it sounds like, with the Girls Gotta Heal is an amazing resource, and that's probably something that attributes to the healing process, right? And giving back and being of service. But what are some other things that you incorporate?
I think the biggest thing, like you'll hear me say or talk about on the page, is I always tell people to meet yourself where you're at. And that phrase was life-changing for me, because I had always been someone who was trying to push through, get on to the next thing. How can I help myself next? How can I support this person? How can I do this? And I never just stopped and acknowledged where I'm at and honor that. So, if I'm having a tough week, I really honor that. And I start at that point. I'm not like, oh my gosh, I backtracked. I think you have to show yourself compassion, and really meet yourself where you're at. And I think that really helps with, giving yourself whatever you need that week, with whatever comes up, as well as planning ahead. So I always try to book therapy sessions ahead. Even if I'm in really good space, that's something that I do to look out for future me. So another thing that I always talk about is look out for future you, whether that is preparing your clothes the night before, putting some money aside, or, having these self-care pieces in place for yourself. Book that appointment, book that massage, book that therapy session, even if you're in good space, because you never know, that week you might need it.
I love that.
Sounds almost similar to like working a program from the addiction side. To me, it sounds like the basis of a lot of solution comes down to maintaining a program, one that keeps you within your own well-being and kind of keeping yourself in check, and then monitoring that and sticking to it. And I mean, even people that aren't in recovery or haven't gone through some, trauma bout, a lot of times you see them having rougher days on the days that they don't maintain their program. Whether, that's just going to the gym or eating right or doing this. I feel like that's a takeaway for everybody at this point.
No, it is. I mean, I love the, giving yourself grace. I mean, and I've never looked at it like something really registered when you said that, of just like meeting yourself where you're at, because it's like, I'm so compartmentalized and I'm so OCD with like task oriented and getting these things done. And sometimes I end up overwhelming myself to the point where now I'm not getting anything done, as opposed to just like taking a step back, being aware, accept what's going on, and taking action of just being, sometimes it's just as simple as being kind to yourself. You know what I mean? And meeting yourself where you're at is a really good term. And I love that. On that, if you were to give our audience an action for the day, if you had one thing to be able to give, if they're going through a hard time, they're experiencing some difficulties, what would your action for the day be for them?
I would say lean into what makes you feel good, whether that is a certain person, a certain thing. Really try to get in tune with yourself and lean into what feels good. Not everyone is blessed to have a large group of people or, a big circle or a lot of resources. But I think wherever you're at and whatever's around you, you can really pull on to what makes you feel good, whether that's like, a nice meal with your family, or going to a certain spot you love hiking, or calling up your best friend who's kind of far away, but makes you feel good. So just leaning into what makes you feel good.
That's amazing.
Incredible. Where can people find more about you? Find more about your site that you guys are, the Girls Gotta Heal. Where can we find more information about all of this?
I think the best spot is my Instagram, which is Girls Gotta Heal, pretty simple, and my website, www.girlsgottaheal.com.
Boom.
Perfect.
Unbelievable. I really appreciate the vulnerability, the transparency, the authenticity. This is like a very fluid just fluid and fully comprehended everything that you went through and came out on the other end. And it's just amazing to see what you've been able to accomplish. Congratulations on all the success and what you're doing, and whatever we can do to support you, please let us know.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we're coming to the end of the show. Thank you so much, Carm, for joining us. What a wholesome show.
Yeah. Beautiful.